Okay, good evening, everyone. This is Sachin Karnik here from Angel Wing LLC. Today is the 3rd of April, 2025. I want to welcome you all to our continuing religious traditions exploration via the Angel Wing program. Just a quick disclaimer that the Angel Wing LLC does not promote or criticize any particular religious, spiritual, or meditative tradition. The purpose here is to try to present as objectively as possible the various concepts and ideas within various theologies and theodicies, etc., throughout the world, as well as philosophical or religious philosophy. Also, whenever it is my commentary, Sachin's commentary, I will try to make that clear that this is my perspective, and it's only just my perspective. There's no attempt to try to convince anybody of anything. It's just a way of trying to explore further, and we encourage each person listening to these recordings live or in the future later on to really contemplate in their own way, attend their own organizations or whatever suits them as per such. So now we are continuing further in the Omni qualities. And the quality of omnipresence is what we will look at today. We looked at omnipotence and some other qualities before. Omnipresence is most fascinating. It's the notion, and I'm looking at this more from the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, as well as some of the theistic traditions in India also, that there is a supreme being, one unparalleled Lord or being, the Elohim, as the Old Testament states, the King of all kings, the one supreme monotheistic God. In Christianity, that is the Trinity, the three persons in one. In Judaism, it is Elohim or Yahweh. In Hindu tradition, that is called Parameshwara or Bhagavan. That's one supreme being. The meaning is pretty much the same. Now, to understand some of the ontology behind this, that there is creation. So there, by the will of the God, by the will of divine will, creation has happened. The Garden of Eden, the forbidden tree, the tree of life, the material creation, etc. Adam, Eve, all the animals, and then all the progeny after eating the forbidden fruit. That continues in the Hebrew Bible. So in the creation, the creator, the one who has created the entire creation, is present, is omnipresent. This is the idea. Now, this does not mean that the monotheistic God has become the material world, but has created the material world and is present everywhere in the material world outside of time-space causality. So time-space causality is what we are aware of. There's time, there's space, there's the cause-effect relationship. But the notion of an omnipresent God in these Abrahamic traditions and the devotional traditions has the following points. That omnipresence is the divine attribute of being present everywhere at the same time. It signifies that God is not limited by space or location. Unlike physical beings who can only be in one place at one time, God's being, knowledge, and power permeate the entirety of existence simultaneously. See these points very carefully. As far as we are concerned, as being physical beings, we occupy one place at one time. We have a certain amount of knowledge. We have a certain limited amount of energy, etc. God doesn't have those limitations. God's being, or God's, the spiritual essence that is God, it has infinite knowledge, infinite power, and permeates the entirety of all of existence all at one time, simultaneously. This is called one of the omni qualities, omnipresence. Okay. Now there's a lot of questions that can come about. How is this possible? How can it happen? Why does it happen? There are many answers to these kinds of questions. Many of them are there in some of the more devotional strands in India. They are also present in the Judeo-Christian tradition, but they're the answers are a bit different. So for example, in the Eastern tradition, the same concept of a monotheistic God is there. Yes, in some of the traditions, it's there. But there's also the law of karma. There's a theory of reincarnation. Those things are also present. Those concepts of law of karma as such, the way the Eastern traditions describe, is not there in the Judeo-Christian tradition. The concept of rebirth is also not there. So these are different metaphysical systems. In the more Judeo-Christian traditions, God's omnipresence is that God is seeing everything. He knows everything. He knows all of our deeds. And there's no reincarnation theory as such in the more traditional sense. So then whatever actions we perform, we are judged based on that, and then that's all. So more Islam has more of that kind of sense. So when we perform action, it's all recorded by the one monotheistic God. Everything is recorded, tallied. And then to the extent that we ask for forgiveness and repentance and whatnot, to that extent, he forgives all of our deficiencies. So he knows all. God is all-knowing, omniscient. We talked about that before. But God is omnipresent. So omnipresent, omnipresence, present every single place at all times. This is the idea. Now, is it possible to actually be aware of this truth, if it is a truth? How does one know? How does one even recognize that God is present everywhere? Well, let's look at some of the quotations from the Bible itself. So I have them here for you. Give me just a moment. Very interesting stuff. So first of all, while nuances exist between traditions, the core understanding of omnipresence is in the major Abrahamic faiths shares the following common ground. God is not confined. God cannot be confined within physical structure, like a temple or church or geographical boundary. While certain places might be considered especially holy or points where God's presence is particularly manifest, like the temple in historical Judaism or within believers through the Holy Spirit in Christianity, God's fundamental being is not restricted to these locations. Right? So it's present everywhere, in every situation, at all times. This is one point. God sustains creation. God's presence is often linked to his active role in sustaining the universe. He isn't just a distant creator. His ongoing presence upholds the existence of everything. Because God is present, that's why universe and reality exist. If God's presence goes away, its reality is also gone. That's point number 2. Point number 3, immanence and transcendence. Omnipresence is closely related to the concept of God's immanence, being present and active within creation, and God's transcendence, being distinct from and superior to creation. So omnipresence highlights the immanent aspect. God is near and involved. Without denying the transcendent aspect, God is fundamentally different from and greater than the universe he inhabits. So there's transcendence and there is immanence, both. Now, this is different from pantheism. It's crucial to distinguish omnipresence in monotheism from pantheism, the belief that God is the universe, or pantheism, the belief that the universe is part of God through God, though God is also more than the universe. In traditional Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, God is present throughout creation, but remains distinct from it. He permeates all things, but he is not identical with them. All right, so these are the basic theological ideas. Accessibility and awareness. Because God is everywhere, he's accessible to worshipers anywhere through prayer and devotion, and that's what I was trying to get to. Furthermore, his omnipresence implies his omniscience, the all-knowingness. Being everywhere allows him to be aware of everything that happens, right? So he's accessible at any time, depending on the extent of devotion and the extent of connection in the heart of the devotee. Then that accessibility is present. Let's take a look at some of these quotes from the Bible. Judaism states, emphasizing God filling heaven and earth, Jeremiah 23:24, and Psalm 139 beautifully describes the inability to escape God's presence. Where can I go from your spirit? Or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in the Sheol, Sheol, behold, you are there. While the concept of the Shekinah refers to God's dwelling or manifest presence, particularly historically in the tabernacle or temple, God's essential being is understood as boundless. So that's in Judaism. Just a couple of quotes here. In Christianity, this builds upon the Jewish understanding. God's presence is affirmed throughout creation. Acts 17, verses 27 to 28 state, He is not far from each one of us, for in Him we live and move and have our being. Okay, so very, very interesting. The point is that He's not far from us, and that, so within Him we live, and within His being we live. So you can see the actual quotation there. That He is not far from each one of us, for in Him we live and move and have our being. That our being, our movement, our activity is all possible due to the presence of God within creation. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible. Nothing would be possible. And this is the omni quality of omnipresence. The Christianity also emphasizes the specific presence of God through the Holy Spirit, dwelling within believers and the church community. Matthew 18, verse 20. For where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, you see, very, very interesting. Whether 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, I am there in the midst of them. Now, you see how interesting this is, right? So, what does this refer to? Well, the fact of the matter is that this refers to the communion of devotees. When devotees come together, this is in Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and you'll find in the devotional strands in the Hindu tradition, you will find the same idea, that when devotees come together and they are glorifying God, they are glorifying the ultimate reality, they are talking about God, they are thinking about God, they are trying to understand the will of God through the sages and saints and prophets and gurus and teachers. When that is present, what do we have? As the Bible states there, that for where 2 or 3 gather together in my name, it's right here. I'll highlight it for you. This is Matthew 18, verse 20, chapter 18. So Matthew 18, 20. Excuse me. Yeah, so for where 2 or 3 gather together in my name, I am there in the midst of them. You see, so this concept is there in the Vaishnava tradition in India, in the Shaiva tradition in India, in the Sikh tradition in India. This is not anything new. This is there throughout the devotional traditions throughout the world. The same concept that is there in Matthew 18, verse 20. Now, look at what Islam says about this. Allah's omnipresence is understood primarily through His boundless knowledge and power that encompasses everything. The Quran states, and He is with you wherever you are, and Allah and Allah of what you do is seeing, and we are closer to Him than His jugular vein. When emphasizing God's absolute transcendence, the Tanziya, if I'm saying that right, Tanzih, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. That's absolute transcendence and uniqueness. God affirms His nearness and awareness throughout all creation. Similar idea. So in summary, the omnipresence, the 5 omni qualities are there, and this is one of them. The omnipresence is God. In monotheistic religions is the belief that God is a singular, ultimate reality, is unbound by spatial limitations. The space-time causality is not bound by those limits. He's present everywhere simultaneously, within us, outside us, within everywhere. As the Upanishad in the Indian tradition would say, Ishavasyam idam sarvam, inside the present everywhere. He's present everywhere simultaneously, sustaining creation. That the entire creation is sustained by the will, the power, and the benevolence of God. This is its great, amazing ideas are here. aware of all events. Again, this notion is called the witnessing consciousness in Vedanta. The witness, the one who is seeing all, aware of all. So that awareness that we also talk about many times is also attributed to God in the monotheistic traditions, and accessible to believers at all times and places. If you have faith, belief, the word Shraddha in the Indian tradition comes into the picture here. If that belief is so strong, if it is enlivened by knowledge and wisdom, then God becomes accessible anytime, at any place, if that connection is solid, if one knows how to access, that is the scriptures, the sages, the gurus, the teachers, etc. So even though God is accessible to believers at all places, all times, the monotheistic traditions would say God is transcendent, is distinct from the created world. So it's a fundamental attribute underscoring God's immensity. Immensity is beyond our imagination, endless immensity. Sovereignty, the all-doer. The total sovereign means doing everything is under his control. The Elohim concept in the Hebrew Bible, the Parameshwar concept in the Indian traditions, the Parameshwari concept, if it's the divine feminine, there's different ways to talk about this. There's of sovereignty. The intimate relationship with his creation. The creation and the created. The creation and the creator are together. But the creation is not the creator. Otherwise, what you would have is that God also falls into the creation. Like if God is Adam, God is Eve, God is the serpent, God is the forbidden tree, God is this, God is that, then God has degraded and fallen in. No, that is not the case. So again, this is what these traditions are talking about. Now, having said this, some of Sachin's commentary for the next few minutes here, then we'll open it up for conversation. So this is very interesting. This is very, very powerful. Again, humbly, this is just only Sachin's commentary, nothing more than that, and perspective on this. That yes, I think that there is a great possibility of trying to touch the divine reality through bona fide scriptures, assuming that the Hebrew Bible and the New Testament and the Quran are bona fide, and many of the texts in other traditions, in Indian traditions, other traditions, that they are genuine access points to the Lord, assuming that, if that's the case, if some people, there's always disagreement about it, but assuming that there's at least something in all these traditions that is genuine, assuming that, one would have to discover what that is, and then walk that path and ask God in a devotional sense, in the devotional fervor, to reveal himself. So the revelation-based traditions, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, are revelation-based. In India, the bhakti traditions, bhakti meaning devotional strands, these are revelation-based also. It's not that, as I mentioned before, a devotee or a spiritual aspirant can take 99 steps, spiritual steps, psycho-spiritual steps, and then the 100th one, God has to come in front of us, as the result of our spiritual practices. That is not the case in grace-based salvation. Please keep these 2 points in mind. Grace-based salvation versus performance-based salvation. These are very different approaches. Performance-based means that I am going to take steps, do so many different steps, and once I purify myself and get to a certain stage and all that, then I'm enlightened, and so it's through my self-effort I will reach God. That is not the case in any of these traditions that are grace-based. What God sees is your sincerity and effort. It doesn't mean not to perform effort, but the grace-based salvation is that the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Being, is seeing the sincerity and how badly you want to come to him. And if you wanted 100% and you want only him, then he will, by grace, bring you to him. This is called grace-based salvation. All right, so these are extremely important points. In the Sanskrit tradition, This is called krupa, Krupa. Krupa means grace. It has the same meaning. So there's other words in the Sanskrit language that talk about the performance. I won't go into that here. But the point is that when a person is genuinely interested in discovering if God is omnipresent, there are some specific things to do. Okay. One, again, only Sachin's commentary here more than anything else. The first step is to stop finding faults with others. Find one's own deficiency. Find good things from others. We know everybody has deficiency. We'll be aware of that. That's fine. Don't internalize it. Nowhere in the Old Testament, the New Testament, or in many of the scriptures of India, or even the Buddha's teachings, anywhere does it say, find other people's faults and internalize them. See your own deficiency. Get rid of that. Try to get rid of it. Ask God to get rid of it. See the good qualities of others. And love God in the singular way. God is one and unparalleled, as in the Matthew chapters. And Jesus is, he talks about the two greatest commandments, which he got from which he pulled out from Deuteronomy. Love thy Lord with all thy heart and all thy mind and all thy soul, right? Matthew 22, verse 37. I mention that all the time because that's the whole crux of it. And to serve humanity. That's the second commandment. So you will see throughout the different religions, and we're talking about the Judeo-Christian tradition in the initial series right now. We're going to cover all the religions. But this is the beauty of it, that there is a great practical teaching here in the omnipresence of God. Find out what are good qualities of others. Find out where is one's deficiency. Stay focused on that deficiency. Admit it. This is the concept of sin, to admit one's deficiencies, sins, and all those things, and ask God to forgive. To err is human, to forgive is divine. You see, the word forgiveness in the Sanskrit language, just some comparative, that is called Kshama, K-S-H-A-M-A. Kshama means to forgive, one who forgives. Forgiveness, the quality of forgiveness, we also need that quality. And the Supreme Being, the Supreme Lord, if He exists, if we have faith, which we talked about for since the beginning of this year, how that all develops. Faith is the continuation of reason, all those things. Then forgiveness is necessary. Forgiveness in our heart frees us. What good will come finding faults of others? If you want to find faults, there is a small experiment you can do. Take a white sheet of paper and put a little black dot in the middle. You may be familiar with this. Ask 100 people, what do you see? They say, I see the black dot. But is there anybody who says, I see the 99.999% that is white? That doesn't see the black, you're aware that the black dot is there. But what is there? That beautiful white color is there also. White and black doesn't mean like racial or anything. It could be a green dot or yellow dot. It's not, not to misunderstand that way. It has to do with not seeing the fullness of another person. We are quick to make judgments, quick to find faults. These things have contaminated human relationships. Only Sachin's commentary here, and as long as we are, as human beings, against each other, in conflict with each other, hurting each other, finding faults with each other, not helping each other, we are never going to realize the omnipresence of God. This is Sachin's humble commentary. If you might know the whole Bible, might know the Quran, and might know the Guru Granth Sahib, or might know the Gita or any scriptures, but as long as that conflict is inside, that I am greater than somebody else, I'm better than somebody else, as long as that is there, how can God's omnipresence be realized? I would say that is, humbly saying that is not possible. That is never possible. That is why throughout the religious traditions of the world, there are sages, there are saints, there are monks, there are sadhus, there are individuals who are evolved, what we would call enlightened beings. What is it that makes them enlightened? This is the very first quality, to see one's deficiency, to find good qualities of others. How beautiful life would be, how beautiful life can be. If only countries did that, if only cultures did that, if only religious traditions did that, if only families did that, we would have heaven on earth. Right? So with that, I'll stop my commentary here, and I would love to hear from all of you And we can go further into any direction here. So as I promised, I would do about a half an hour and then open it up for another half an hour for conversation, discussion, dialogue, etc. Would love to hear what you all have to say. Thank you so much for attending.